That is on Friday. We understand that Raila Odinga is to host that event. There's a story on page 6 of the Standard. Raila event attracts large number of ODM followers. Raila yesterday held a planning meeting with Nairobi ODM and Jubilee Party officials, and it is not yet clear if President Uhuru Kenyatta will attend the event. But there's also the story that is on the front page of the Daily Nation. 2022, Uhuru follows the Moi script. They are saying that the president is keen on the choice of who will take over from him. And let me begin with you, Senator Kajwang, because this has been going on for so long. Once upon a time, we were told that there would be a coalition agreement between the Jubilee Party and the ODM. I don't know the progress on that, but also, why does this Friday matter so much? Because your party leader is saying that this is going to change the politics of the country and the race of 2022.
This Friday is a big day, and believe that it will be the turning point for this country. Every nation has had its critical junctures. Ours has been at independence. Ours has been the repeal of Section 2A, the promulgation of a new constitution. I believe this Friday is going to be another critical juncture in the history of this country. Raila Odinga has gone all over the country, and in every region he's gone to, he has gone with an economic, political, and social transformation blueprint. He did that when he came to Homa Bay. He did that when he went to Kakamega in Mombasa. So we expect that Friday will be a culmination where we are now going to have the national vision that Raila Odinga has for this country. And that's why I'm saying it will be a critical juncture, because it will define a future and a path for this country that, if we follow, it will be a path to prosperity. We expect, because this is part of the Azimio la Umoja drive, we expect that on Friday, we will be bringing together different interests, we'll be bringing together all regions of this country, and we'll also be bringing together various political parties. We have taken the position that we do not want to go with one behemoth of a political party, unlike our competitors who want everyone to be part of the party. There are parties that perhaps have the same social justice agenda. There are parties that we share certain things with. So ODM, Jubilee, be it any of the Fords or any of the parties that share the vision that this country needs unity, cohesion, and economic development, we will welcome all of them there. This then will set forth a movement that for the next 8 months will be all over this country to ensure that despite the travails that COVID has brought, despite the problems that this country has gone through, we'll be able to rescue our country. So this Friday, I want to urge all Kenyans, if you have an opportunity, please listen to the message, please listen to the promise that Raila Odinga has for this country. It is one of transformation, it is one of unity, it is one of cohesion, and it is one of true economic prosperity and empowerment.
Senator Kajwang, that's quite a picture. Let's listen to what IABC Chair Wafula Chebukati is saying about what is going on, because he's saying that we are 8 months to the, actually will be 8 months to the general election starting this Friday, but he's saying that politicians have jumped the gun. Listen.
We're encouraging, we don't have candidates now, and we are saying we shall have candidates, is it 120 days to elections? And those are also some of the issues we are discussing here. But we encourage aspirants not to put in high gear issues of campaign, because there's time, and not to put the country in campaign mode. So we have said it before, and we shall still keep on encouraging them to not to push us in the campaign mode. Time will come for campaigns once they become candidates now for elections. We remember the first time we asked political parties to submit nomination regulations. We found them short of what we required. Then we now ask them to do it again, and they have all submitted. And now we are reviewing the same, and should be able to issue certificates to those then who have complied. And that should be done in the course of a week from now. We had submitted how many, Vice Chair? 89? 89. 89. All of them who submitted in the first instance resubmitted. So all of them have submitted. It's a question of now analyzing and giving certificates to those who comply. And I think before mid of this month, we should have done that exercise.
All right, that is Wafula Chebukati, the chairman of IABC. And Canon, I understand you have a meeting with the commission later this week. Maybe you can tell us what that is about, but also this call, because he's making it the second time, I believe. Recently, he said that the politicians should wait until at least the election season is declared, or election period, which begins on the 14th of March when IBC is set to gazette the notice of general election. Is IBC unable to contain the political temperature, or is it too big for the commission?
Thank you very much, Sam, for that question. And the senators are here. They will tell you is that since the last election in 2017, a lot of the candidates, especially for presidential and some for governors, have actually went out to start the campaign. So it is indiscipline on the part of these candidates to actually carry out campaigns or political campaigns when they actually should be fulfilling the promises that they made to Kenyans. Having said that, the IABC is right. There are no candidates as we speak, because candidates are normally, there's a process for them to be declared. It is part of the culture that we have created in this country, that people, even before they have landed on the seats that the people have given them, they are looking for how they are going to be re-elected. It is a very big challenge. It's a challenge that I think we should open conversation around. Having said that, as the National Council of Churches, we have invited IABC tomorrow. We want to have a conversation with them. We also want to pray for them. IABC plays a very sacred role and a duty that all of us are interested in as Kenyans. And as a religious body, we feel that the support that we can give them is to commit them to God and to ask that when they do their job, they do it and make sure that elections in next year are going to be free and fair, that they are going to be independent. We don't want them to be under the authority of anyone. We want them to create the optics and the perceptions that they are independent, and to make sure that the trust that Kenyans have put in the commission is respected. We also want to give a message to also the candidates, because we believe that candidates play a very key role, and political parties, that they play within the electoral code of conduct. The challenge, Sam, is that right now, you can't hold them to the code of conduct because the campaign period has not started. And that is something that I think the senators should tell us. Should we change the electoral code of conduct so that after they are there in 5 years, they are continuous? The electoral code of conduct is continuous, because we have seen campaigns in churches, in funerals and other places, and in big rallies in towns, even during the COVID period, contributing to the spread of COVID. On one hand, we are telling people, don't come to church because there's COVID. On the other hand, people are going to political rallies and other places. So it's something that I think needs some conversation, but we support the IABC. Yesterday, we had a meeting with women to basically create a pool of mediators that can be able to help in peace building. Tomorrow, we are going to meet with the IABC to make sure that we support them in the call. And we invite the whole country to do the same. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And Honorable Onyonka, of course, this has been a continuing question why political leaders engaging in campaigns were ahead of time, but it seems like nothing is deterring them, including yourself, who's shifted parties recently. But if you're to look at that road, the 8 months to election, IABC had set out that by the 31st of December this year, they would have done a bit of the work, especially in closing most of the crucial tenders, talking about the ballot papers, the elections technology. But these decisions have been challenged at the Public Procurement Administrative Review Board, and also one of them, the technology one, going to the High Court. So far, no signing has happened. Are we over-preparing on the political front, but missing out on the election preparedness itself?
The answer from me is 100% yes. I have mentioned this, I think it was a year ago, where I said, and I remember one of my colleagues really bitterly saying that wasn't the problem. The problem, Sam, is that we have our country predestined and geared towards, once an election takes place, we start campaigning immediately. We have best practices in other countries within even the region. All right, and to be honest, with a lot of respect to Chebukati keeps talking. I have never seen him bringing a law to Parliament where he's saying, I would want you people to discuss and deliberate, or even, in fact, even having public hearings from people, because you must have public hearings on the laws that you want to bring to the floor of the House. Then we debate them, discuss them, to make sure that we sort out the problem.
Honorable Nyonka, that's not fair. In March 2020,
yes,
IABC held a meeting, I think it was at the Coast to Justice and Legal Affairs Committee,
yes,
and told them of what they thought should be changed on several laws that manage elections and referenda. So far, those bills have not been enacted. They're still lying in Parliament. Actually, just hold on. Early in the year, there was that conversation about the campaign financing regulations.
Yes.
Of course, there were challenges because the Parliament said that they were time-barred, but these are issues that had been pending since 2016. So it would appear that Parliament on its own has also failed in keeping up with the legislative responsibility that would facilitate IABC to do some of these things better.
I still go back to what I said, Sam. You can say the problem is Parliament. Kwani, you want to tell me that you cannot have a private member's motion, private member's bill being brought to the floor of the House through IABC, or through even discussions?
But the structure is IABC works with the Oversight Committee, which is JLAC.
That is true, but you don't have to go through JLAC to bring some of the laws onto the floor of the House. You can actually, if they felt that this was a very serious, they can even have the Attorney General's office work with them. You see what happens, I've been seeing this happening in the House. Even when we were having issues with Justice Maraga. Why were we having those issues? Justice Maraga kept on raising and discussing issues which were making him feel that the executive was not giving him what he needed for him to make the necessary changes in the judiciary. And yet, in reality, I remember it was only once in the period of 5 years that Justice Maraga even ever came to the Budget Committee so that we can discuss. Remember, there was a very hot issue about his funding. And when we were talking amongst ourselves, we said, we don't understand why Justice Maraga is really making complaints about this. And yet, if he had come and sat with our committee and said, this is what I want you people to do, we would have passed it. Now, I'm raising the same issue with Chebukati. Chebukati is sounding like as if his hands are tied and he doesn't know what he's doing. But in reality, the software that runs our elections in our country is designed on an inept platform. In other words, Sam, let me ask you a question. Can't we have a program where we say, for example, from the elections are going to be in August 2022, but from the month of May, that is when we want you to start having your public rallies, that is when you can start yapping whatever you are yapping, that is when we want you, then from there we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. There should be very clear target time periods. There should be a clear structure. There should be a clearly understood program on how, when people actually start campaigning, how you bring in campaign financing, how you have what you can say and what you can't say, and what period you're going to spend for your elections.
But Honorable Nyonka, that plan is actually existent. It's called the Elections Operations Plan that was unveiled a few months ago. I think it was early in the year. But it appears the politicians are not keen on adhering to it.
No, it is because when you are discussing the laws and we are trying to pass those laws, if you can't explain to me the reasons why you want that law to be passed, I will not encourage you to pass it. Because politicians would want to have advantages anyway. But it is injuring first of all, our country. We are spending we have a 5-year period where you say you are elected over a period of 5 years. The truth is, this country functions for 2 years to achieve anything. Our economic time period, our economic time warp is only 2 years. 3 years is what we do, basically running ourselves, making noise. I mean, you can see, and I'm really careful on this, you can see the deputy president has been campaigning for 9 years.
What do you mean?
Exactly what I'm saying.
campaigning for 9 years.
Yeah. I mean, we have been on campaign mode. We have been into, until it is reaching a point, for me at a personal level, it has reached a point where I don't even want to watch news. I don't want to see those videos. Some of the videos are even doctored. They have all been used by social media people who are making the crowds look bigger to show that somebody has more people. We are not even. I'm so impressed. The DP today is talking about how he wants something to be done in terms of the economy, and we are not even discussing that. We're just taking people, putting them in the fields, I mean, going to markets and yapping and yapping. Our country needs certain infrastructure to be, whether it's economic infrastructure or whether it is political infrastructure, to be put in place so that we know clearly that you can do this and you cannot do this. So Chebukati, yes, his hands are tied because he can't do anything about it. But then he should be encouraging us. I don't remember, Sam, lastly, I've not seen Chebukati call us to a retreat, even within Parliament, and say, gentlemen, can you come so that we make a presentation to tell you how you are messing up our country? All he does is wait for election. He's saying, oh, the contracts have not been signed. Oh, the budget committee has not given me 45 billion. That is all he ever talks about. But has he ever called a retreat where we sit as legislators so that we can then engage amongst ourselves and with his team and all the other stakeholders so that we can agree on the way forward?
Senator, is what Honorable Nyonka is saying fair, knowing that there has actually been those engagements with the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee that even the media has covered? There have been several meetings, especially at the coast, with the IABC teams. Yet we are where we are. What do you think would be the solution out of this? Because the blame game is too much, yet an election is coming. I
believe that IABC has squandered whatever goodwill that could be remaining on their part. You can see a member of the National Assembly complaining about the manner in which the IABC is engaging with the National Assembly. The IABC is always quick to point out that they are independent and that they are not supposed to take instructions from anybody. But independence does not mean that you operate in a silo. You must still engage Parliament proactively to ensure that laws are passed and resources are available for the very important election coming up. I am concerned about two things. And unfortunately, we don't seem to be talking about them. I'm not too concerned about the early campaigns. There are people who campaigned for 9 years, as Onyonka said, and there are people like Raila who have not started presidential campaigns. They are uniting the country as Mio la Umoja. And so I know when after this Friday, probably we'll get a good roadmap for Raila to start his campaigns. But I'm worried about two things. One, our elections, we put it in the law, the role of technology in our elections. Technology at the point of registration, technology at the point of voting, technology in transmission, and technology ultimately in collating and managing the entire exercise. Technology becomes obsolete. In the last exercise of voter registration, we saw the same devices that were used in the last election being used. Now, these phones and any technological device, after 4 or 5 years, they reach a stage of obsolescence. We have not seen IABC put in place proper measures to upgrade and update its technology, hardware, software, to ensure that we are not going to have situations where when people come to vote, you don't have devices crashing or devices failing to connect. That is a very likely possibility. We are not, and the tender wars that are going on tells us that IABC is not ready to put in place a proper technology platform. In the regulations and in the conversations that were there before the last election, I remember there was a conversation that was held at Windsor, which was co-chaired by the now governor for Meru, Governor Kiraitu, and I think it was Kiraitu and Orengo and a few others, who came up with wonderful proposals even before the IABC bungled those elections. We were supposed to make sure that even our technology is acquired, is deployed, is tested well ahead of the elections. We are now 8 months to the next elections, and we are still fighting in procurement tribunals. We are still fighting in courts over technology. That is a red flag. The second red flag that I see is a positioning of critical agencies that have to do with elections in the hands of people who have been previously discredited. So you have the IABC as Elections Management Board. You have the Communications Authority as an entity that ensures that every part of Kenya has been reached with 4G or 5G kind of connectivity. And who do we have there? We have the gentleman who was previously the CEO of the IBC. Then you have the data commissioner, another extremely, extremely important position, because the data commissioner is the one that ensures the integrity, the security, and the confidentiality of all data, including the electoral roll, headed by someone who was previously in the discredited IBC. These are conversations that we must have.
So, I think are these fears out of perception or reality?
It is not perception. It is not a perception that Ezra Chiloba was the CEO of IBC.
Not true.
It is not perception that Kasait was a member of the IBC.
But have they been faulted for any wrongdoing and even convicted?
No. It's not just, I mean, this is politics. We are not in a criminal justification enterprise. But the Supreme Court vilified the IBC for so many things. If you read the reasons that led to the nullification of the last elections, actually it is not perception, it is reality. It is all there. So those people who are responsible for bungling the last elections should not have been credited with such critical installations that will play a part of the next elections. And I think that IBC, and these are not things that we want to discuss in public rallies. They are not things that we want to, because we don't want to whip the emotions of this country. Okay. There are those who have told us that even if Oburu Odinga was the chairman of IBC, they would still be happy. So we don't want to create a contestation and say that it should be Oburu Odinga or it should be Oscar Sudi. What we want to make sure we do is that the technology is proper, the players that are involved are people who are beyond reproach, so that we can build some level of confidence. In fact, we have even said, Chebukati, we had rallies before the handshake. The issue was Chebukati must go. But we are saying, if we have the right technology, if we have the processes, if we have the rectification of things that were pointed out by the Supreme Court, we would still go into the election whether Chebukati is there.
Senator Kajwang, I'll come back because there's something you raised there that Raila Odinga has not been engaging in campaigns. We'll talk about that shortly. But Canon, when you listen to all these conversations, recently IABC withdrew from the National Multi-Sectoral Consultative Forum on Election Preparedness that is chaired by Chief Justice Martha Koome, and they did so on grounds that they felt the team was going to interfere with some of their independent mandate that is granted to them by the Constitution, but also said that they felt they were being thrown to the periphery in that committee. What do you think? Because, again, election is about the country, and every stakeholder has something to give. And when you listen to Chief Justice Martha Koome, that's what she's quoting, that all of us have a responsibility and a role to play in a proper election. So how does IABC wade through all these perception questions and all these controversies that come with an election season?
Good, thank you very much. I think it is true. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is independent, as all other independent commissions are. However, the Constitution also have a section that talks about interdependence. Yeah, you are independent, yes, but you're interdependent. Parliament is independent, but it also works with is interdependent with the other two arms of government. And I think if you read the letter of the chairman of IABC, at the bottom he still wrote that they will still work with other agencies to make sure that they fulfill their mandate. The challenge we have in this country is that we put the IABC in a high pedestal of trust. And that trust issue is based on perceptions. It is based on the stories that especially the politicians and the people of Kenya tell around the issue of IABC. In 2017, for example, you remember there was an IABC that was headed by Isaac Hassan that was disbanded because certain sections of the political class were not comfortable with them, and they would otherwise have absconded from election. So they were disbanded, and a new commission was put in place quickly to run the election. What we have right now in this country is that gap of trust is what is costing us billions of shillings. We are currently running one of the most expensive elections in the globe. Yet, even after we get the machines and the computers and the electronic systems, we still don't feel the trust because there's so much mistrust in the country. and there's so much competition, and eventually it leads to building up of a story that the elections are not free and fair. So what do we do as Kenyans? First, we must recognize as IABC as an independent body. And as an independent body, they should make their decision whether to participate in committees of this kind or the other. However, they must work with the rest of the agencies and ministries to deliver the elections that are free and fair. Number two is for them to manage the trust that the people have put in them. If participating in a committee is going to affect the trust that people have on the IABC, they should make the right decision. Number two is the unity of the commission. We have seen in the past a division among the commissioners. What we are urging them and what we are praying is that this time round, the commission is going to be one. The commission is going to speak in one voice, and they must follow the law. What we are urging the political players, because the political players and the candidates are the ones who are the major consumers of the work of IABC, is that they must follow the law. They must accept the results that are announced by IABC. In this country, elections and polling is done at the polling station. You remember we had a time that collation and adding of votes was done in the tallying center. We changed the law so that the tallying is done at the polling station. And the results that are actually announced at that polling center are final. So once those elections results are announced, we would like the framework that has been set for transmission to be credible, to be free, and to be fair. And anyone who has issues is able then to have a connection and a meeting with IABC to raise those issues. We don't want politicians to reject the results of the election, and anyone who has a grievance, they should seek the redress in the courts.
Okay. And of course, if you have to look at the screen on the left side of the screen, you'll see the images of the Deputy President. He was meeting with the church leaders yesterday. Actually, it's your church, ACK Nyeri. It's Nyeri Diocese, right?
Yes, the diocese, Mount Kenya East, I think.
Okay, all right. And of course, as you look at the timeline, starting 9th of December, there are things that should not be done. They include fundraising by political leaders that want to run for election in 2022. Earlier on, I remember your Archbishop, Sapit, saying that all these political meetings and campaigns in churches would be banned. I mean, how difficult has it been to keep with that sort of directive? And how much does money play when it comes to politics and the church?
Yes, I saw that meeting yesterday in Nyeri. I think it is Bishop of Nyeri or Mount Kenya East that had organized a forum of about 1,000 leaders that met with the Deputy President. Now, let me make it clear. For National Council of Churches, we engage with politicians of all kinds. We are always in meetings with them because we believe that the faith communities and us as a National Council of Churches need to establish a just and sustainable societies, and political leaders are part of that game. Having said that, we have seen in the last period a lot of political hate messages being spewed in the pulpit. And we came up with guidelines to say that pastors and bishops across the country should guard the pulpit, because the pulpit is a place where people come for nurture and spiritual nourishment. We have urged our pastors, and they have followed largely, to make sure that they keep the pulpits from the pulpit, but not from church. We have said, when politicians come, let them come and worship, but let them not come to do their campaign and, campaigning within the church, because the church has all shades of political opinion. The second issue was fundraising. Fundraising has been an issue that has been discussed because it is the way politicians buy support from people. And the challenge is that we find that a lot of corruption money and dirty money is finding its way into the church. So what we have advised is that when the politicians, when they are harambis, they should not involve politicians. Because politicians have a way of overshadowing everybody. You'll have a harambe where I have been, where we have raised 30 million, and the politicians were like 30 of them. They came, they demanded an hour to speak to us, and all they gave us is 1 million. out of 30 million. So it's actually an irony in terms of the kind of limelight that they hog. So we want churches to avoid harambes during this period.
Is this meeting in Nyeri within
the guidelines?
What is allowable?
I haven't gotten the details, but looking at it, it looks like a meeting that was called, and then the Deputy President was invited to address them. It is completely in order for churches and church groups to invite politicians to address them, because it is also in the interest of church leaders and pastors to know what does the candidate, a certain presidential candidate or governor's candidate stand for. That is the only way that we can vet. And in fact, as NCCK, we'll be organizing several of such functions across the country so that then the people can interact with the candidates and make informed choices.
Honorable Nyonka.
Yes. Canon, I want to agree with you and disagree with you. You know, the church where we belong, I'm a Catholic, and you are from the NCCK. I think the church must be beyond reproach. I mean, we know cases where, for example, politicians go to a church and they talk to the managers of the church, the bishops, and even the pastors who are there. And a politician goes and says, "Announce I've brought you 8 million, but I'm only going to leave 2.
And the rest?
And the rest doesn't show up, and the dispute continues, and the church never mentions it. In other words, we have made, the Kenyan politics has made our church become part and parcel of the cartel of the lying and the abuse and misuse of our people. And for me, I think our church needs to go to the next level, because the standards that you set, I mean, I could never see Archbishop Mwana Nzeki receiving somebody in a church and that person telling him, "I'll give you $1 million," but announce that it's 9 million. I would not want that to be the case. Our church has, without necessarily sounding controversial or whatever reason, I just think now, just like our politicians have failed, why are you again failing the public? I know that church is part and parcel of the Kenyan public. Our church people are not angels. We are all, we believe in emancipation of the soul, and we believe in forgiveness, and we believe in cleaning out sin. And yet the truth is, I believe that our church could have done better, and we are expecting our church to be done better. All right, you have issues, Sam. He's raised very wonderful questions. Wonderful issues. Money and corruption in church. It's everywhere. And yet, I don't know whether I have a solution on what we should do as churches, but can't we even do it privately? Can't you even say, if you're bringing your 10 million, please don't announce it? Because the reason why people are going out some and they're raising this money, and you know this money is raised from stealing from public offers. And somebody goes to church and says, "I'm going to give 9 million," that to the public makes him look that this is the Jabali, this is the real king.
Generous. Senator Kajwang, we are practically out of time, but there's a point you raised, and you said that Raila Odinga has not been engaging in campaigns. It has been Azimio la Umoja. I'm just wondering, what's your definition of campaigns for a leader who goes to different places in this country, including Mount Kenya, and says that nimekwea mlima kati ya tingatinga na wheelbarrow ni gani itapanda mlima haraka ama zaidi? That's not campaigning to you?
We have people who have outrightly said in the next elections they have a party, it is yellow, it is UDA, and they have a candidate. And they've said that the rest of us are clueless because they don't have a candidate. So that answers the question, that one party has been going ahead for the last 9 years, defying all the laws on political parties, defying all the laws on political campaigns, and you know, just selling themselves. Raila Odinga has been selling unity. Going to the mountain is an extremely important historical and political happening in this country, because since independence, our children have been conditioned to believe that those who come from Nyanza, from the lakeside, and those who come from the mountain are supposed to be enemies. And yet, in 1960s, when they came together to fight for Kenya's independence, all was good. But then when Odinga left the cabinet 2-3 years later, and Boya was killed subsequently, then these seeds of discord were planted. So as part of that unity drive, it was extremely important for Raila Odinga to deal with that misconception, that very old, misguided and archaic notion that those who come from central Kenya and those who come from the lake or western Kenya cannot work together, cannot marry, cannot do business together. It's not just about politics. There is a perception that is based on stereotypes in this country. Of course, it is those stereotypes that form the jokes that keep us sane when things are tough. Okay. But when those stereotypes are stretched too far, then they become a point of conflict and a cause of discord. Mm-hmm. And that's what Raila Odinga has been dealing with in his Azimio la Umoja campaigns.
Well, quite clearly, the Deputy President said that he's visiting different parts of the country to listen to the people on their comments about how the country is being governed. Raila Odinga has been going around the country, Senator Kajwang says, trying to unite and fight the stereotypes. Well, I don't know what you think as the viewer. Okelo Mwalimu is saying Lyra's jamboree will definitely send shivers through the spines of his opponents. It's likely to give a clear picture of the handshake alliance, whereas his allies like Alonzo, Moi and others will attend. His opponents like Mudavadi may just keep the event. Already you see their opponents have been defined. Senator Kalu Lepario, election is a process where IABC plays a central and critical role in its preparation. Chebukati and his team must be firm and work in a manner that exudes confidence. We cannot afford the mistakes we saw in 2017 elections. Jacob Abere, what happened in Mwingi is more than a lesson. It's high time infrastructure development policymakers, more so line ministry and counties, prioritize on bridges, dams, constructions in areas prone to floods. Good point. Vet C. Mutai. Mama Ngilu, that is Governor Ngilu, what is the thanksgiving for? The river has been claiming lives each and every season. You should focus on compensation to the families, then give the solutions to avoid the same in future. MCLO, or Makalo, I guess. At the moment, human touch between the parents and their children is lacking. Technology has taken over and children are learning many bad things online, hence affecting their way of reasoning. Control measures should be put in place to avoid such. And Agumba Steve, they talk of return of the kin, yet the courts and jail are open for the teachers who try correcting students in that manner. Let the parents face the fruits of poor parenting and advocacy for children's rights, so painful that the students give directives on what to do. Well, a continuing conversation about how to improve our society, our schools, but also our politics and how to manage the next election. Many times we don't agree on many issues, but on those that we agree, I think we need to emphasize on them to build better. Senator Moses Kajwang, thank you so much. Honorable Richard Onyonka, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And Canon Chris Kinyanjui for making time for us from NCCK. My name is Sam Gituku. We're out of time.
For a second.
We're out of time.
Just a second, Sam. I am so happy to be back in ODM. I will be attending the parliamentary group meeting today, and on Friday, I hope I will be sitting and looking at my president in the next 1 year.
Really? Richard Onyonka. He's a member of parliament under Fort Kenya, but he's attending a parliamentary group meeting.
That was worth the 10 seconds.
William Ruto is a member of parliament of Jubilee.
Up next is Matters Social. See you some other time.